Thank you all for joining us. I'm Corey Byron. We're going to do some brief introductions and then we'll get started. As we know, many of you are off to work or have busy mornings. I'm the guidance director here at Hanover High School. I have been working here this is my 18th year, and I'm really excited to be working with this year's class. I'm going to turn it over to Janelle. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Janelle Cost. I have been here for 19 years, just a little bit more than Corey. Just been in Hanover, and I am looking forward to getting all of your students ready for the college application process. So we're looking forward to it.
Patrick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Pat Mcguire. This is my first year in Hanover. I spent the previous 10 years in Duxbury as a guidance counselor. I've had a great opportunity to work with some of your kids over the last couple of weeks. It's been a great experience, and I look forward to working with them over the course of this year as well.
Emily, last but not least.
I'm Emily Scolidge. I've been working here at Hanover High as a coach, and I was guidance counseling over at Taunton High for the past couple of years. And this is my first year at Hanover, and I'm looking forward to getting started on the college process with everyone.
I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, perfect. So let's see. Okay, so we are going to spend the next half hour, 45 minutes, hour, depending how long you guys have and how many questions you have, going over the application process for this school year. We're really excited about some of the things that we've been doing with students. We have been trying to get started ASAP. Once students were up and running with their schedules, we kind of dove into the college process. So on the first slide, you can see the caseloads. I have A through Carn, Emily has Caro through G, and Patrick has H through MUR, and Janelle has Must through Z. So that actually goes through grades 9 through 12. That's we wanted to keep it consistent because it was a little confusing to figure out what child was with what counselor. So we're hoping this streamlines it a little bit more. I'm going to, let me just open the view. Sorry, hold on one second. And try to do the Joe. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about Google Classroom. Was that Emily? Was that you?
Yes. So all students have access to the guidance Google Classroom. We've been doing starting senior workshops and making sure that those kids are all on our Google Classroom. We post all sorts of things on here from college application instructions. So if they're having any trouble with score or anything like that, this is a great place for them to start to see if we have anything posted about how to help on there. We also have important announcements and reminders. Like we put that we're having a college fair this upcoming Tuesday on there with the list of colleges and example questions that kids can ask. We're also posting scholarships and job opportunities for them too as well. You can see our access code for there, and the students can access this with their Hanover Schools Google account that they get.
I just was going to, there you go.
So then there's different types of college admissions options for kids as they're applying to college. So we have regular admissions, which is just there's a set date that's typically between like November to February, where students have to apply by that date, and then their application gets reviewed with everyone else that's applied by that date. Then there's rolling admissions, which is just kind of, they get an application in, then they review it and say if you're in or not. So it's just as they get applications in, that's how they start to admit kids or not. open admissions is that the college allows you to apply pretty much at any time during the year. There's no certain date that they have to apply by for certain semesters. It's just that you can apply at any time, and then they will let you know once they make their decision. Then we have early action. Early action is similar to regular decision in that there's a certain date that you have to apply by. So early action, a lot of the times the dates are between, the first one is typically October 15th, and then they usually go to about the beginning of December. So that's early action. It's just like regular decision. It's just an earlier date that you have to apply by. Early decision is a little bit different, similar to early action in that the dates are earlier in the year. So it's usually in the fall. So that October to December-ish area. The difference with this though is that you have to sign a form to a college you apply early decision to. You're only allowed to apply to one college early decision. And what that form says, it's a contract that says, if I am accepted into this school, I am going to go to this school and I will withdraw all my other applications from the other colleges that I have applied to so far, and I will not apply to any more. They will also allow you to look at your financial aid package and things like that when you get your early decision. That one is very specific though, and very individualized, and we'll have a talk with students of whether or not we think that would be a good option for them.
Senior workshops are, we've already started them. We've done senior workshop number 1. So some of your students may have been coming home and talking about it. I wanted to describe kind of what we're doing during those. It's usually a small group, about 7 to 10 students. And what we do while we're in there with them is we go through the common application, which Mrs. Byron's going to go through in a little bit to show you what we've been talking about with the students. And we also talk about, other applications outside of common application and where to get it. And we also talk about how do they do their transcript requests through SCORE, which is a new system that they're using. So we're trying to help them out in terms of learning how to do that. And we also do teacher recommendations, and we talk about, who to ask, what the best practices are for that, as well as essays and standardized test policies. As many of you know, through the pandemic, a lot of the colleges have turned to test optional. So many of them have remained that way. And so we're talking about whether or not it is a good idea to go ahead and send that, as well as how do you send your scores. It's a hands-on workshop. So we actually work with the students in this small group. They are able to ask questions, discuss specific essay topics for themselves, or just things generally about what they want to ask. And we typically will post those right outside of our guidance office. There's a bulletin board. It shows them when their workshop is, what period, what time. And if they're not able to make the one that we've scheduled them for, they certainly can reschedule to another one because we're holding multiple ones throughout a given week. So if your son or daughter is starting to talk about that, that's typically what we're doing during it. If they have not attended one for some reason, please make sure they see one of us so we can get them scheduled into one for some reason.
So this is me. I'm going to be going through the common application and showing you what we did with our seniors. Let me just escape out of this presentation and we're going to head to the common app. Can everyone still see my screen? Just give me a nod. Okay. Okay. So the common app is an application that over 900 schools use for their application process. I don't recommend applying to 900 schools, but with the common app, you certainly could. The way that the common app works is if a school is offering a school-based application on their website or the common app, there isn't an edge if you use the school-based. They pay towards the common app account, so they are perfectly happy if you choose to apply with the common application rather than their school-based application if they offer that. Excuse me. So when a student has decided that they want to apply to a school, they would come to the college search and they would add in, let's say, Amherst, and they would find their college and they would click the button. and it becomes on their dashboard. So now a student can see their running list of schools here. What is important about the homepage here is that under application where it says in progress, that tells you if you have submitted or not. The great thing about the Common App is you can't accidentally submit the application. It makes you fill out every single thing before you submit it. So you can't accidentally submit it and withdraw it. So that's the really great thing. When you have applied, it'll say application submitted. So sometimes students have said, oh, I've submitted the application, and you come on here and you see that it still says in progress. That means they have not fully submitted, which I'll go over in a few minutes. When we're meeting with our students, we're focusing on some of the information that is under the Common App tab. They are going to have to sit down with families and discuss this section right here. Family section asks about who they live with, information about their parents or guardians and siblings. So oftentimes we have students where they start to fill this out and they don't know their parents' birth date or where their parents work, or if they went to college, and if they have, where they've graduated from. So this is a section that we encourage students to meet with their families about to complete. So oftentimes, because everyone is so busy, this tends to be the last thing that gets filled out, and that's totally fine. Just sit down when you have time with your child and go over the information. In all of our workshops, we've been talking about the education section. This is based off of our Hanover High School information. If we've had students who's transferred in, taken dual enrollment classes, this is also where they would put their information. The date of entry is September 2019, which we've gone over, and students just go through and they fill out all of these different sections. Under the grades, we go into detail about how big the class is. In our class rank, we do not report actual rank, we report rank percentile. So students will enter that information in here. And then also their current or most recent courses, which is just their senior year courses. So this section is something that we have gone step by step with our senior class, and will continue to do so in future workshops for those who missed it. Under the testing, so Janelle touched a little bit on the standardized testing. We go into detail about this in a later slide, but oftentimes, in many cases, we tell students to select no under test taken, because if a student reports an SAT score here, then this tab, the Common App tab, goes to every single college, versus if you wanted to go individually, you would just send those through College Board or ACT, but we'll discuss that in a little bit. So oftentimes students are recommended to select no, and if they're not international applicants, they would select no as well. So this tends to be the quickest section to go through. Students can report AP scores if they want to here. That is completely up to them. I have some students who report that they received 5s on certain things, or 3s or 4s, and other ones that choose to keep that private. You do not have to send official AP reports from College Board in college admissions. That can be done later once they're accepted. As you can see, there's a green check mark next to testing. That tells me that this section is completed. So when they're going through, they're going to get green check marks for each of these sections that tells them that it is complete. If they don't have a green check mark, that means that they've missed an item and need to go back and adjust it. In the activity section, here we go. This is where students will report their top 10 activities. They can only list 10. There is a section which I'll show in a moment that they can upload an activities resume if they would like, which we will discuss in future senior workshops if they choose to create one. In this activity section, this should be anything that they've done outside of their school day. This can be clubs, anything with arts and music. Sometimes I've had students do hobbies, any volunteer experience, work experience. So one of the mistakes that students make is they think this just has to be a school related activity. It does not. We have a lot of kids who do some really cool things outside of Hanover and even the Hanover community. So that can be listed here. One of the things that I have been telling my students is that with the activity section, you want to show them more than just if you're a volleyball player or if you're just a musician. Those activities are very important, but if you write your essay about playing the trumpet and all your activities are about playing the trumpet, and you have a letter of recommendation from your band teacher, the only thing the admissions person has learned about you is that you play the trumpet and you're a musician. So everybody has so many different layers to their interests and who they are. It's a good idea in the activities section to obviously put down some of the things that are important to you, but also if there are other things that are unique and interesting to you, to add those to the activity section. In the writing section, you'll see that some of the schools will have not required. When you go to submit, there often is an option to submit your essay with the common application, which we definitely recommend. It helps colleges, if they choose to read it, to get a bigger picture of your student. In the essay section, students will select a prompt, and then down here they will either load it in from Google Drive in this little section, or they can copy and paste it. The essay is only 650 words. And if you exceed the number of 650 words, it actually cuts it off on the bottom. So you have to make sure that you put in the maximum 650 words. They don't let you go over, and you actually have to meet the minimum of 250. So no one sentence essays. The college essay is something that I have found over the years has become a huge part in what college admissions counselors take into account when admitting a student. So the essay is the opportunity for students to sell themselves, to talk about something unique, to show their certain, sides of their personality. Oftentimes we like to have a running theme behind what they're talking about. So maybe the theme of it is perseverance, resilience, creativity, whatever that might be. We want that to come through on an essay. The guidance counselors are more than happy to read essays and give students feedback. So we've been talking about that in our senior workshops as well. In the additional information, this section has a question about COVID-19. We are instructing students that if they in fact do have something that has impacted them in a way that significantly was different than someone else. So we all had to wear masks. We all had hybrid learning at Hanover High School. So if there was anything beyond that, like if they had to work to support their family, or someone was significantly ill, or they in fact had COVID and were out for a long period of time, that is where you would click yes. And I have a demo account, so it's not showing it, but there is a section where you can write a paragraph on how it did in fact impact your education or your life. Underneath here, it says, do you wish to provide details of circumstances or qualifications not reflected in this application? Again, because I have a demo account, it's not showing the box underneath it, where students can upload an essay, a resume from Google Drive. So this is where students can elaborate on an activity, discuss any other personal information that is not included in their essay. So if a student had a death in the family that significantly impacted them and it wasn't included in their essay, they can list it here as well. Sometimes I've had students who have been on a 504 or an IEP and want to disclose that information. They can. For those of you who have students on a 504 or an IEP, we do not disclose that information unless we have written permission. So if that's something that you would like us to include in our letters of recommendation, please reach out to your child's guidance counselor in writing and give us permission to do so. And finally, under my college.
Corey, I was just going to say one more thing with regards to the writing section. I think that, sometimes kids shy away from that section not to write anything because they think it's often sometimes one more thing to write, but they just also don't know what to put in there. I've had kids have situations on their transcripts as well, and they don't really know how they can explain either a particular grade or something that was challenging for them. But they say they persevered through the end, they stuck it out, worked really closely with the teacher. And although the grade doesn't reflect that on the transcript, it's an opportunity for them to explain their experience. So that was like just another example.
Thank you. Awesome. Appreciate that. So under the next step, once they've completed this section of the Common App, over here there is something called courses and grades. Some colleges do require students to hand type in their grades, their final grades, instead of, they do require a transcript to be sent, but they also want students to list their courses here. If in fact they do have that where it says one college required, they just have to reach out to their guidance counselor and we can help them with that. Under the My Colleges tab, this is where we have added the schools that the student is applying to. Now, as I mentioned, everything in this Common App tab goes to every single college. The difference under My Colleges is that the answers to these questions are specific to the college and only the college will see it. So for UMass Amherst, the students will go through, they declare a major, when they would like to start, do they want to live on campus, are they interested in financial aid? And then they also ask, how did you hear about it? And sometimes they have a little blurb that says, why do you want to attend this school? And sometimes it says suggested or optional. So we're telling our students, do not treat it as so, treat it as it is a mandatory question so that, you know, you're actually showing the college you're putting in all of the effort you need to. Under recommenders in FERPA, this is an agreement where it tells us that we have permission to send documents to colleges. So everything we send is electronic, which we'll get into shortly, but students need to complete this release authorization granting us permission. Students in their senior workshops they already attended, have completed this, and those who haven't will do so in the future or individually with their guidance counselor. So that is about it with the Common App. Did I miss anything, guys? Okay.
Oh, that was good.
All right, so we are going to go into the next section, which is letters of recommendation. Oh.
So in our senior workshops, as I mentioned before, we are going over letters of recommendation. We are asking students to ask two teachers for a letter of recommendation. They can be a teacher from any level, starting in 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th. Given that we were in a pandemic and some of these students don't necessarily have that relationship with some of their earlier teachers, maybe even in 9th or 10th grade, oftentimes they're looking at their junior year teachers that they had last year, which is one of their first full years back. So we are asking them to look at teachers either both in a one in a STEM, which would be science, technology, math, and then also in humanities, which could be English, history, world language, to look at some of those two areas as teachers they would want to identify. But we're also saying to students that if you are planning to go into an area, say, for example, like business, and you've taken a course with one of our business teachers, you know, and they're saying, can we ask that teacher instead? Absolutely. They still should have one of their academic teachers in one of those two areas, plus a teacher in one of those areas like business, art, music, depending on the major they're planning to do. So it can vary per student, but we're trying to give them some advice and talking to them. And when we're meeting with them, we're talking about who they've chosen and why. So that would be first step, is they're going to actually ask them in person, go up to them either during class or see them before or after school, ask them if they're willing to write that letter of recommendation. And if they're in agreement that they can do that for them, we are going to be showing them in just a couple more slides about how to do that in SCORE. We've shown the students what's called the senior information sheet, which is located in the Google Classroom that I believe Emily spoke about before. The Google Classroom has an attachment attached in it. I don't know if we want to show them where it is. Okay, before I keep going. And I'll give you a minute to get in there. So our Google Classroom, under the classwork, we've shown them there is a section under the letters of recommendation. We give them a little information about how to request that, and then the senior information sheet is the second one down, and it's attached. They can share it, they can open it, save it to their Google Drive, and then begin to complete it. Upon completion of it, we've asked them to kind of check in with their teachers about how they'd like to receive it. Do they want it to be shared directly through email on their Google Drive, or do they want a printed copy? So we've asked them to kind of touch base with the teachers. We are happy to receive it through a shared document, but we asked them just to check in with those teachers. Do you want to go back to the?
Yes.
In a minute, we're going to kind of go through SCORE, which is our new system. And in SCORE, that's where they're actually going to input their teacher recommendation. During our senior workshop, we actually went through this process for those that have already asked their teacher, but also showed the other students, if they haven't quite gotten that verbal confirmation, how to go ahead and do that as well. So they do know kind of that they need to do these 3 steps as part of the process of the letters of recommendation. And we are going to continue to remind them through email and through additional workshops as we continue through the process.
So transcripts, what is on a transcript? At Hanover High School, all courses taken during high school are on the transcript. This includes final grades and the credits for each course. It also includes the GPA and rank percentile. This is essentially sent as a PDF to colleges. We do not include quarterly grades. The only first quarter and mid-year grades we send are for senior year. So the initial transcript that we send off will include freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. It'll have this year's classes listed with that initial transcript that's sent off, but it won't have any grades. Once grades are published after first quarter, we will send those off to colleges. The platform we use, as everyone has said prior to this, is SCORE for sending all our documentation.
Patrick, I'm just gonna actually pull up so they can see what a transcript looks like.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep, so we're using SCORE to send all of our documentation, including the letters of recommendation, school reports, transcripts. Occasionally, there are schools that require that we mail hard copies of transcripts. If that's the case, your student can notify us and we'll send that out. That's not an issue. There are a select few. As far as how students notify us when and where they're applying and where they need their transcripts sent, they also do that through SCORE. So there's an opportunity for them to go under their suggested schools on SCORE. And what they do is they move that over to the applying section here. And what that does is sends a notification to us that your student is applying. So we send them an acknowledgement saying that we had received that, so they know that we're aware of their deadlines. Typically, we ask kids to do this, if they have a November 1st deadline, if they give us a 2-week head start on things so we can get all the paperwork squared away, that works out in everyone's favor. As far as the standardized testing piece goes.
Yep, just before we
Yeah.
jump to that, I just wanted to, for those families who are just jumping in, we ended our contract with Naviance and moved to SCORE because we felt like it was much more user-friendly for students. So for example, last year, if you've had an older child who was part of Naviance, there was a lot of clicking and a lot of steps for a student to request a transcript. And SCORE has really simplified this considerably, where all, like Mr. Mcguire was saying, all they have to do is take it from following and add it to applying, and it's done. So if you're wondering why we did move over to SCORE, there's a lot other features that we will have more informational sections later in the year, but it's just a lot simpler. So this is what SCORE looks like. And this is where your children will be working this year for college applications. So
yeah, it's been a cleaner process, and I think the kids have been really receptive. In the workshops, they just do it as I'm talking. So usually by the end of our workshops, we have a bunch of acknowledgements that we have to make for each one of our students. If they have any issues, questions, or concerns with that, obviously they can stop by and we can continue to help them with that.
let me go back to the presentation if my mouse would. There we go. Okay.
So yeah, standardized testing scores. So over the last few years with COVID, many schools have become test optional. This is typically, I found that a lot of schools through 2025 will continue to be test optional. And what that means is there's probably more of an emphasis on the transcript at this point than the standardized testing scores themselves. So it really becomes an individual decision of whether it's worth sending scores or not. If you are to send scores, Corey touched on it before, in order for them to be official, they need to be sent through the College Board or through ACT. There is a list at fairtest.org, which tells you which schools are test optional, but the majority at this point are. This is something where we recommend the kids to come down and talk to us one-on-one and say, all right, is this something that's beneficial? And if it isn't, we typically recommend that maybe they hold off on sending the scores. And again, that just puts more of an emphasis on the transcript itself. And I think that's beneficial for a lot of our students.
Okay, so the good news is that many of the colleges are coming back to doing in-person tours, but there's also opportunities, and I'll get into those in a minute, but there's also opportunities for students to do what's called virtual tours. There is one coming up in October. It is a virtual college fair, which is great because it allows your son or daughter a chance to kind of learn about, connect with admissions reps. It's over 100 colleges that participate. They participate in workshops. They're able to look at videos. They get additional resources. We know how hard it is to actually go out and see colleges. And even going into big fairs can be overwhelming. So this is just a way to do it a little bit easier for them so that they can actually get some really solid information that they're making the right decisions on the colleges that they've chosen. But you certainly can go out to an in-person tour, which from my perspective is one of those things where you just can't, being able to be on a campus and seeing it and walking around and actually experiencing what it's going to be like. So those are starting to come back in. Usually they can be found at the college and university websites, and they just asked you to register for them in advance. And it's a great way for them just to kind of feel what it would be like to be in college. So these are two ways you can actually go out and get some more information, either in your own home, if that's the easiest way to do that, or actually going out and experiencing that over at the actual college campus.
So financial aid, we just had on September 14th, we had a financial aid evening with Matthew Carpenter through College Aid Pro. We're going to be offering another one in a few weeks, which I'll get into in a moment. But just to briefly touch on this, the FAFSA and the CSS profile are available on 10-1. The FAFSA is a form that needs to be completed for all colleges in order for students to receive financial aid. The CSS profile is through the College Board, and not every single college requires it. It's only required by specific colleges. And you can go to the website listed on this slide to find out which colleges require it. If you are an underclassman, you can even do this as a senior. There is a really cool website through the federal government called the Fafsa Forecaster, and you can actually do a practice FAFSA to see how much aid you'd be given and to kind of let you know what you're looking at as far as the college financial landscape. Every single college needs to have something called a net price calculator. Because college is so expensive, they tend to hide it on their website. So I would recommend going to Google and typing in net price calculator for, Bentley College, and you can go in and they'll actually calculate what the net price will be for that college. As I said, colleges are expensive, so it's not something to put right directly on their front homepage, but by law, they're all required to have it. So if you're interested to see how much a school costs, you can go to the net price calculator. If 20 years ago when I filled out the FAFSA, we had tons of paper and signatures, and we had to mail things in, and it was more than 20 years ago, but I'm just going to say 20. So when now everything is online, just like everything else, but you need something called an FSA ID to sign the FAFSA. So a parent and a student need this ID. If you have one already for older siblings or older children, you can certainly use the same FSA ID, but everyone, that students and parents need that. In addition to the CSS profile and the FAFSA, some colleges may have a specific institutional form that they require for financial aid. So I would really encourage you, if you can, let's see if the next one. Yep, on October 6th to come to this FAFSA and CSS profile line by line webinar. You're going to be sending out the information again for families. Matthew Carpenter will be running it with some of the people in his company, and they really know how to answer the questions on the FAFSA. There are certain questions, if you answer it one way, it kind of puts you in a different category. So he goes through all of that, and I would highly recommend if you can attend. On September 27th, Janelle touched on some fairs. We're actually having one here at the high school for students only. There's going to be over 100 colleges that will be there. It offers students the opportunity to collect materials, to talk to different college admissions reps, to get contact information. Some colleges actually keep track of points of interest and include it in their admissions review. So if a student shows a lot of interest and has developed a relationship with the admissions rep, has gone to visit, has talked to them at college fairs, some colleges actually take that into consideration when admitting students. So it's a really great opportunity that we have here. It's done in collaboration with a bunch of schools in the South Shore. So Abington, Marshfield, Norwell, and Pembroke. So it's like a little traveling fair for the college admissions representatives. On October 27th, this is going to be sent out shortly if it hasn't been already by Mrs. Rumi. We're offering SAT school day here at the high school. So students have the opportunity to, try and up their SAT scores or take it for the first time. As Mr. Mcguire mentioned, a lot of them are SAT optional, but sometimes students like to take it to see how well they're going to do and if they want to send them off their scores off to college. So I think we're here for questions. I know there was a couple. One of the questions is, are college visits considered an excused absence and is there a limit? Ms. Scolidge responded in the chat, but students can have up to 3 excused absences for college visits, which is really great. So if you go to a college website, they sometimes are posting open houses that they have for students. If we receive that invitation, we post it on Google Classroom, so people can see when college open houses are. Is there any questions? We're going to open this up. You can either type them in the chat or happy to take them live. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see.
Hi there, quick question. This is Nicole Nozick. The transcript requests, those are done through SCORE. So you just move the colleges into the I am applying category, that should take care of that.
Yes.
Yeah, yep, it's super easy. All they have to do is drop it in that applying column and that's it, that's done. So like I had mentioned, it's a lot easier than Naviance. There's a lot more steps. So this is pretty seamless. One of the things I'm not sure if we mentioned is we will be sending everything electronically. Teacher recommendations and transcripts go through us to the colleges. We submit them through SCORE. So it's once the students have requested their recommendation and transcript in SCORE, that's all they have to do. We will take care of the submission to college. Is there any other questions?
Ori, we got a question in the chat too. They're asking, is there a job aid or simulator provided to the student that reviews the steps for completing the website information? So I'm not quite sure what they're asking there. So if you want to elaborate on that question and what you mean by what website you're referring to, whether it's SCORE or Common App.
Oh, here's a question. Does SCORE have the feature like Naviance where students can see how they compare GPA wise? So let me hold on one second. I'm going to share my screen again, and feel free, any guidance counselors, to jump in and interrupt me while I'm talking. So this is an accountant score. So if you want to check out, let's say where you stand with Emerson College, when you click Emerson, you just click here. And we're going to scroll down. And just for everyone who's new to SCORE, this is similar to Navient, where it gives you a profile and overview of the college, tells you where it's located, gives you a map. It just scroll too fast, sorry. It tells you the admissions rate, all the basic, statistical information. Under the admissions tab, right here where it says application scattergram, again, I'm in a mock account, so it's something I can't click on, but view application scattergram will give you the information where you can see where you're plotted in admission. So yes, this is similar to Navient, and this also will give you where they fall, if it's a reach school, target school, or safety school. I'm sorry, I can't click on that for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I'm in my account. But yes, does that answer the question, I hope? Any other questions? Let's see. So again, SCORE is a new thing for everyone on this call. It's new for our high school. Parents do have access to SCORE. Students during their junior workshops last year invited parents. But if you did not receive an invitation or it went to spam, just reach out to the guidance office, your child's guidance counselor, and we can resend you the link to get into SCORE. I have found it to be, I actually like it better than Navient. I don't know if Janelle, Patrick, Emily feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's more user friendly for the kids that really taken to it. So yeah, definitely an improvement.
Yeah, so I think it would be great if you haven't logged in to see it, please reach out and we can certainly get you access, because it is, there's a lot on there for those of you who have, underclassmen, not seniors. Students will be going through and filling out a personality and career inventory called U Science. It's really in depth. We had students and the sophomores start it last year and juniors finished it last year. I mean, sophomores left, they're seniors and juniors now. So if you can get access to it, it's really interesting information. We do offer in, we'll probably be doing it in the January, February timeframe. We do a complete overview called Destination Graduation. We go into depth into SCORE and just what we're offering as far as the college and career curriculum. So that information will be coming out in the next couple months. All right, do you guys have anything else to add, Patrick, Janelle, Emily?
No, I think the only thing is that one question from the parent that I'm not sure we should answer that, which was the
Yeah, so I was talking with them. They were wondering if we have videos to show kids how to do certain things on SCORE and Common App, which we do. Everyone can access those on Google Classroom.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure we were able to answer that.
Yeah, we're constantly wanting to improve and update our information. So if you have questions, suggestions, please reach out to us, because, as someone who's done this for years, sometimes when you do something a lot, you tend to miss the minor details that maybe would be more helpful to people. So please feel free to reach out through email or to contact your, through phone. We're happy to hear from you guys and enjoy the feedback. So. Thank you all for coming. And if you have any other questions, we'll stay on for a few more minutes and see if anyone has individual questions that they wanted to ask.
I actually have a question. I was trying to figure out how to type it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to figure out how to type it, but I feel like it's too complicated. at least in my head. So the process for you guys to send recommendations and transcripts where they go in to score and check off where they want you to send them. I know, like, I imagine that's like an iterative process, right? Because they might apply, like if they finish an application for a school for like an October deadline, but then they don't finish the application for other schools until November. Like, how are you guys managing that moving target with all the different schools? Like, does the question make sense?
Yes. It's a really good question, actually. And I hope I understood correctly. So if I answer you and it's not the answer, please just let me know.
Okay.
So when a student moves a school from following to applying, and let me pull up my screen again. We get an email acknowledgement that says, Janelle Koss is applying to UMass Amherst. You need to go in and acknowledge it. So if a student decides they've applied everywhere by November 1st, they're all done. And then in January, they decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to add another school. Then we get an acknowledgement that in fact, they are adding another school. So the other thing I wanted to say is if a student knows that they are definitely applying somewhere, they don't need to wait until the deadline to put in a transfer request. They can put them all in at the same time. Then, eventually if they wanted to add them, we get an acknowledgement, and we're constantly checking the system to make sure that we, have the documents ready to go and are sent in a timely manner.
And many of the students are telling us, what their earliest deadline is. And once we have completed the process for that particular student, any additional transcripts or moving to applying, we're already ready for that and able to send it off because we've completed it for their first earliest deadline. So a lot of the conversations we're having in the workshops is also asking them to give us some notification of when is it October 15th, the earliest deadline? Is it November 1st? Is it some waiting till January, which for everyone is going to be slightly different. So we're asking them just to give us a little bit of information around that so we know how to put them in a particular deadline category so we can make sure we are on track for completing.